Hi, eighth grade. So we have been reading Howl's Moving Castle by Deanna Wynne Jones, and so far, Sophie has been trying to see her sisters who have been placed out of the hat shop, and she's finally brave enough to go out, and it's May Day. What made me think I wanted life to be interesting? She asked as she ran. I'd be far too scared. It comes from being the eldest of three. When she reached Market Square, it was worse, if possible. Most of the inns were in the square. Crowds of young men swaggered beerily to and fro, trailing cloaks and long sleeves and stamping buckled boots they would never have dreamed of wearing on a working day, calling loud remarks and accosting girls. The girls strolled in fine pairs, ready to be accosted. It was perfectly normal for May Day, but Sophie was scared of that too. And when a young man in fantastical blue and silver costume spotted Sophie and decided to accost her as well, Sophie shrank into a shop doorway and tried to hide. The young man looked at her in surprise. "It's all right, you little gray mouse," he said, laughing rather pityingly. "I only wanted to buy you a drink. Don't look so scared." The pitying look made Sophie utterly ashamed. He was such a dashing specimen, too, with a bony, sophisticated face, really quite old, well into his 20s, and elaborate blonde hair. His sleeves trailed longer than any in the square, all scalloped edges and silver insets. "Oh, no thank you, if you please, sir," Sophie stammered. I'm on my way to see my sister." "Then by all means do," laughed this advanced young man. "Who am I to keep a pretty lady from her sister? Would you like me to go with you, since you seem so scared?" He meant it kindly, which made Sophie more ashamed than ever. No, thank you, sir," she gasped and fled past him. He wore perfume, too. The smell of hyacinthus followed her as she ran. What a courtly person, Sophie thought, as she pushed her way between the little tables outside Cesari's. The tables were packed. Inside was packed and noisy as the square. Sophie located Letty among the line of assistants at the counter because of the group of evident farmers' sons leaning their elbows on it to shout remarks to her. Letty, prettier than ever and perhaps a little thinner, was putting cakes into bags as fast as she could go, giving each bag a deft little twist and looking back under her own elbow with a smile and an answer for each bag she twisted. There was a great deal of laughter. Sophie had to fight her way through to the counter. Letty saw her. She looked shaken for a moment, and then her eyes and her smile widened and she shouted, "Sophie!" "Can I talk to you?" Sophie yelled. "Somewhere," she shouted a little helplessly as a large, well-dressed elbow jostled her back from the counter. "Just a moment," Letty screamed back. She turned to the girl next to her and whispered. The girl nodded, grinned, and came to take Letty's place. "You'll have to have me instead," she said to the crowd. "Who's next?" "But I want to talk to you, Letty," one of the farmer's sons yelled. "Talk to Carrie," Letty said. "I want to talk to my sister." Nobody really seemed to mind. They jostled Sophie along to the end of the counter, where Letty held up a flap and beckoned, and told her not to keep Letty waiting all day. When Sophie had edged through the flap, Letty seized her wrist and dragged her into the back of the shop to a room surrounded by a rack upon wooden rack, each one filled with rows of cakes. Letty pulled forward 2 stools. "Sit down," she said. She looked in the nearest rack in an absent-minded way and handed Sophie a cream cake out of it. "You may need this," she said. Sophie sank onto the stool, breathing the rich smell of cake and feeling a little tearful. "Oh, Letty," she said, "I'm so glad to see you." "Yes, and I'm glad you're sitting down," said Letty. "You see, I'm not Letty. I'm your sister Martha." Chapter 2, in which Sophie is compelled to seek her fortune. "What?" Sophie stared at the girl on the stool opposite her. She looked just like Letty. She was wearing Letty's second-best blue dress, a wonderful blue that suited her perfectly. She had Letty's dark hair and blue eyes. "I'm Martha," said her sister. "Who did you catch cutting up Letty's silk drawers? I never told Letty that, did you?" "No," said Sophie, quite stunned. She could see it was Martha now. There was Martha's tilt to Letty's head, and Martha's way of clasping her hands around her knees with her thumbs twiddling. "Why?" I've been dreading you to come see me, Martha said, because I knew I'd have to tell you. It's a relief now I have. Promise you won't tell anyone. I know you won't tell if you promise. You're so honorable. I promise, said Sophie. But why? How? Letty and I arranged it, Martha said, twiddling her thumbs. Because Letty wanted to learn witchcraft, and I didn't. Letty's got brains, and she wants a future where she can use them. Only try telling that to Mother. Mother's too jealous of Letty even to admit she has brains. Sophie could not believe Fanny was like that, but she let it pass. What about you? Eat your cake, said Martha. It's good. Oh, yes, I can be clever, too. It only took me 2 weeks at Miss Fairfax to find the spell that we're using. I got up at night and read her book secretly, and it was easy, really. And then I asked if I could visit my family, and Mrs. Fairfax said yes. She's a dear. She thought I was homesick. So I took the spell and I came here, and Letty went back to Miss Fairfax pretending to be me. The difficult part was the first week when I didn't know all the things I was supposed to know. It was awful. But I discovered that people like me. They do, if you like them. And then it was all right. And Mrs. Fairfax hasn't kicked Letty out, so I suppose she managed it too. Sophie chomped at cake. She was not really tasting. But what made you want to do this? Martha rocked on her stool, grinning all over Letty's face, twirling her thumbs in a happy pink whirl. I want to get married and have 10 children. You're not old enough, said Sophie. Not quite, Martha agreed, but you can see I've got to start quite soon in order to fit all 10 children in. And this way gives me time to wait and see if the person I want likes me for being me. The spell's going to wear off gradually, and I shall get more and more like myself, you see. Sophie was so astonished that she finished her cake without noticing what kind it had been. Why 10 children? Because that's how many I want, said Martha. I never knew. Well, it wasn't much good going on about it when you were so busy backing Mother up about making my fortune, Martha said. You thought Mother meant it. I did too, until Father died, and I saw she was just trying to get rid of us, putting Letty where she was bound to meet a lot of men and get married off, and sending me as far away as she could. I was so angry, and I thought, why not? And I spoke to Letty, and she was just as angry, and we fixed it up. We're fine now, but we both feel bad about you. You're far too clever and nice to be stuck in that hat shop for the rest of your life. We talked about it, but we couldn't see what to do. I'm all right, Sophie protested, just a bit dull. All right, Martha exclaimed. Yes, you prove you're all right by not coming here for months and then turning up in a frightful gray dress and a shawl looking as if even I scare you? What's Mother been doing to you? Nothing, Sophie said uncomfortably. We've been rather busy. You shouldn't talk about Fanny that way, Martha. She is your mother. Yes, and I'm enough like her to understand her, Martha retorted. That's why she sent me so far away, or tried to. Mother knows you don't have to be unkind to someone in order to exploit them. She knows how dutiful you are. She knows you have this thing about being a failure because you're the eldest. She managed you perfectly and got you slaving away for her. I bet she doesn't even pay you. I'm still an apprentice, Sophie protested. So am I, but I get a wage. The Sasaris know I'm worth it, said Martha. That hat shop is making a mint these days, and it's all because of you. You made that green hat that makes the mayor's wife look like a stunning schoolgirl, didn't you? Caterpillar green. I trimmed it, said Sophie. And the bonnet Jane Ferrier was wearing when she met that nobleman? Martha swept on. You're a genius with hats and clothes, and Mother knows it. You've sealed your fate when you made Letty that outfit last May Day. Now you earn the money while she goes off gadding. She's out doing all the buying, Sophie said. Buying? Martha cried. Her thumbs whirled. That takes her half the morning. I've seen her, Sophie. I've heard the talk. She's off in a hired carriage and new clothes on your earnings, visiting all the mansions down the valley. They're saying she's going to buy that big place at the Vale End and set it up in style. And where are you? And we'll stop here for today. So 8th grade, if you like the story and you're getting interested, listen up for tomorrow, and I'll attach the link. Bye, guys.